shrimp shumai, and then half of them have chili aioli. Okay?
Shrimp what?
Steamed shrimp shumai.
Have you ever played rugby?
Hello again, YouTube. We're back with another video. In today's one, I saw the first little 3 seconds and it's confusing me a little. We have This Is How Godzilla Must Die by Goji Center. I think I'm gonna start making Goji Center if it's in a video I feel like could get some attention for reacting, I'm gonna do it. But if it's just a normal ass Goji Center video, might not. It'll be occasional. We won't react to every Goji Center video because I do just waking up in the morning and watching on my bed. Really comfy way to start in the morning. But we're gonna react to this one called This Is How Godzilla Must Die. And when I go to the first 3 seconds, it starts really eerily. This video explores hypothetical concept and theories regarding the death of Godzilla and it is not suitable for mentally unstable audiences. How serious are they taking the concept of death in this video? So, how I think this boy is gonna die in the MonsterVerse is he's probably gonna sacrifice himself fighting a big final boss, which, unpopular theory, I don't think the final boss of the MonsterVerse is going to be Destroya. I think Destroya is going to be the second to last boss, and the finale of the MonsterVerse is going to be an original kaiju. That's my opinion. I'm really hoping I'm right, but I do have a feeling that the finale is going to be Destroya. But that's enough yapping. I've almost yapped for 2 minutes. Let's actually get into the video. The music.
Today on Goji Center, we will discuss a very difficult topic for some Godzilla fans to digest. Will the G-Man ever die in the MonsterVerse?
100%.
And if he does, in what way should the King of the Monsters make his exit? We will be looking at clues from the past and present and try to formulate the best possible way for MonsterVerse Godzilla to appropriately make his farewell. One of the things popping in many people's minds right now is, why even bring up this topic? Simple. Not too long ago, the latest outing in the MonsterVerse was announced, not only giving us several hints, possibly revealing several plot points and giving us a general idea of what sort of elements will be present in this new movie, but also a very interesting word that made us at Goji Center HQ raise an eyebrow.
And what might
Supernova. Now, we did cover this concept a tiny bit in a previous breakdown, but today we will be dissecting this a little bit more and, of course, entertain the road of speculation until more official info is released. Now, Godzilla dying isn't something new. In fact, it's happened several times already and recently. Let's quickly look at how Godzilla died in the past, and maybe we can pick up on a pattern that can potentially predict any possible circumstance in which MonsterVerse Godzilla could also die. Godzilla's debut on the silver screen was also accompanied by a side of tragedy, at least for those that sympathized with the big atomic lizard. It was the year 1954, and one of the very first widely popular depictions of a big monster on screen. Here, Godzilla was depicted as a monster affected by nuclear testing that emerges from the sea and attacks Tokyo. At the end of the film, Godzilla is then killed by combined military and scientific efforts, thanks to Dr. Serizawa sacrificing himself, and with himself the knowledge of the next superweapon, in an effort to kill Gojira and spare the nation from further onslaught. Another infamous confirmed instance of Godzilla dying was the incident in Godzilla vs. Destroya in 1995, cause of death being a nuclear meltdown due to Godzilla's anatomy not being suitable to contain this much nuclear energy, causing it to literally melt and die.
This is gonna be.
The client review was brutal.
And there's 98, who just got...
Alright, we're aware of the mixed sentiments regarding this big lizard, but it does follow the pattern of a Godzilla attacking a populated location. Godzilla in 1998 was shown attacking New York and killed by humans by missile barrages while restrained by suspension cables. Moving on to the more modern era, year 2017, Godzilla Phyllis from the anime trilogy Planet of the Monsters is another instance of a confirmed dead Godzilla, even though Godzilla Earth, the big guy, is still alive.
The big guy.
However, you may have noticed that we skipped over a few. That's because nobody at the time could say for sure that Godzilla was dead. For instance, let's go back to 1984,
84,
where Godzilla
he
ends up
came
trapped
back, though.
inside a volcano. While many believed that this was an implication of Gojira's death for a while, this was then proven false 5 years later in Godzilla vs. Biollante.
Exactly.
Jumping to the year 2001 in GMK, and we see a special case where Godzilla appears to be dead, but then it's revealed that his heart is still beating. A similar case to this, and perhaps one of the most debated instances of whether Godzilla died or not, was that of Shin
Shin's
Godzilla,
cooked,
where
okay?
he was technically
It's
frozen
been
using internal
9
coagulants that
years.
caused his internal fission. Depending on your definition of what is considered death or not, one
Shin's
thing
cooked.
is
It's been
for
9
sure.
years.
This thing is, for now, out of commission.
Yeah, shut up,
The
Shin
most
fanboy. He's
recent
cooked.
instance of a Godzilla death was that scene in -1, where after several attempts of using the pressure of the ocean against the lizard failed, it seems like the classic brain go boom method once again came in clutch. Lizard failed, it seems like the classic brain go boom method once
That's
again came
funny.
in clutch.
The brain go
However,
boom.
although this particular Godzilla is technically dead, its remains are implied to bring forth a successor in a later sequel. These were just
-2
some of
is
the many
official, by the
instances of
way,
Godzilla
so-
seemingly dying, making an exit, or just being temporarily out of commission. What can we learn from these instances? Well, there seems to be some patterns that we're picking up. Out of the several unaliving instances discussed already, note that in all the movies where Godzilla is portrayed as an animal that is attacking humans, this is where Godzilla gets killed by human efforts. In
That's
1954,
true.
Godzilla was killed by the man-made oxygen destroyer. Zilla, although being portrayed as a force of nature
Fucking
and
Barney, I
not
never
necessarily
noticed that.
out to kill humanity, dies all the same by human-crafted weapons.
Yup.
Godzilla Phyllis, a Godzilla specimen notably hostile to humans, attacking them on sight rather than waiting for them to engage, also was killed by a combination of his own actions and the triggering of EMP probes. Shin Godzilla, who was depicted to plow through densely populated areas, put out of commission by coagulants. Godzilla -1, a Godzilla who evidently held a grudge against humanity and took it out on the inhabitants of Ginza, murdering many thousands, killed by human-made weaponry. And finally, another additional
Ultima,
example,
yeah,
Godzilla
exactly.
Ultima from Singular Point, who was decommissioned after turning into a pile of crystal after being portrayed to attack human establishments many times. So, seems like at least in most cases of a Godzilla reincarnation who constantly messes with humanity tends to be stopped or killed by humanity. An in-between point or case would be that of Godzilla vs. Mechagodzilla 2,
Also true.
where humanity seems to be the troublemaker in capturing and using the infant Godzilla as bait. Add to the fact that Godzilla isn't necessarily out to fight humanity, but dragged into a fight started by humans. Here, Godzilla almost died, but then resuscitated by Rodan's sacrifice. But what about the other instances? Recapping what was seen in Godzilla vs. Destroya, here Godzilla wasn't portrayed as the type of anti-human destroyer we saw in the 50s, but similar to the anti-hero Godzilla we know and love, legendary Godzilla. The similarities in character are almost identical.
Yeah,
But note how
Heisei
here
and Legendary
Godzilla
are
doesn't get killed by humans.
twinning.
Or at least they didn't try to. In fact, here they were depicted monitoring and trying to help him. This, of course, ended up being useless as we see Godzilla succumb to this meltdown.
Yeah, but at least he didn't take
seeing
the
as to how
universe with
Godzilla
him.
died in the past, what does this tell us about how Godzilla could die in the future? Well, in the Monsterverse, he almost died again. Recall the incident in 2019 during Godzilla King of the Monsters, where Admiral Stenz told the Monarch crew to get the hell out of the coast of Illidomara due to an incoming oxygen destroyer. Yes, this turned out to be one of the only weapons that were very effective against Godzilla, to the point of weakening his heart rate so much that he was seemingly dead. That, or his radioactive levels turned so weak that they turned undetectable to Monarch's bioacoustic sensors
That's
upon the
probably
G-Man's
more
retreat. Godzilla
valid.
was then charged up in an inverted sequence of events to that in 1954, where Dr. Ishiro Serizawa instead sacrificed his life to save Godzilla. Given that Godzilla almost died in King of the Monsters and suffered a meltdown in Godzilla vs. Destroya while being the anti-hero that he was portrayed as, we might see this happen again in the not-so-near future. One thing that the Monsterverse has established pretty well is that this Godzilla isn't necessarily evil. That being, he's not out to eliminate humanity out of spite, and when he does kill humans, it's because he's provoked. Or we just so happen to be collateral damage. Instead, he is portrayed as a guardian of the natural order, eliminating threats to the planet, or just making sure that the threats are kept in check. And when they aren't, Well, y'all know what
Yeah, fuck you,
happens.
Zilla.
Since this
Bum
Godzilla and
ass.
humans aren't at a crossroads just yet, it's likely that the death of Godzilla is going to happen in a battle with another Titan threat. And since we've seen the cases in King of the
Death
Monsters
Storm,
and
no,
Godzilla vs.
or
Destroya, where Godzilla goes through a meltdown, who knows if this is what's going to happen again? And how, you may ask? Enter GXK Supernova. This word alone carries many implications, but most definitely
Kaboom.
involves phenomena and elements from outer space.
When a star dies.
Another pattern seen so far is seeing Godzilla absorbing different sorts of energy to take on different and increasingly powerful forms. We have seen Godzilla absorb radioactive energy 3 times, one which almost killed him. We have also seen Godzilla absorb DNA from other kaiju twice already. So, will this happen
he did
again?
absorb Mothra's DNA.
Conquer your tough.
For those who need a
just him.
recap, a supernova is a powerful explosion that happens when a massive star reaches the end of its life. Throughout its lifetime, a star burns fuel in its core to stay stable and shine. But when it runs out of fuel, it can no
Pay
longer
attention,
support itself, and
graduates and
gravity
graduates.
causes it to collapse inward very quickly. This sudden collapse triggers a massive explosion called a supernova, which can become so bright that it outshines an entire galaxy for a short time. After the explosion, what remains could be a dense neutron star or even a black hole. The blast also sends stardust and important elements into space, which can later help form new stars, planets, and possibly new life.
It's actually affecting
All
my
right,
eye.
so lots
That's
to
actually
digest
affecting
here,
my eye.
especially since we just discussed the most spectacular form of death in the
Are they trying to say that if Godzilla melts down, he's gonna create an embryo for a new Godzilla? That'd be a cool way to reproduce the species. That'd be cool.
the universe, which coincidentally is also present in the title card for the new movie.
my
Now,
eyes.
we aren't here to say that Godzilla will definitely die in the next movie. After all, this could be something that happens to the opposing kaiju that fights Godzilla, whoever that might be. But let's pretend for a moment that this does happen to Godzilla. Some folks at Goji HQ developed a fun little theory that shouldn't be taken at all seriously. So sit back, relax, and hear us out.
The reminder of this discusses a hypothetical take on what the death of Godzilla could look like and under what circumstances it might happen based on the speculative context from prior films. Do not take this seriously.
Out. There were a few hints given by the cast members of what might happen in the next movie. As mentioned in the previous video discussing this title reveal trailer, one of the cast members, Alicia Debnam Carey, posted this: 2 fairies, a shooting star, phone, and dinosaur. Now, shooting stars are technically meteors, which normally burn up before hitting the Earth's crust, but sometimes they don't. Just ask these guys.
Yeah.
But less rarely, some end up hitting the Earth, providing Earth's inhabitants with unique metal alloys that are pretty rare by our standards. And in this world of science fiction, anything is fair game when it comes to elements coming from outer space. The theory goes that if Earth does indeed get hit by a shooting star, this alien material could contain a new radioactive element that is not found on Earth. And you may already guess where this is going. Legendary Godzilla, who is exceptionally sensitive to these sort of phenomena, would likely race to be the first to inspect and possibly even absorb this new energy.
That would be a really
bringing
cool
forth
way
a
how he
brand
becomes
new
Space
form to
Goji.
Godzilla, but also one that the G-Man's earthly biology isn't quite used to, possibly bringing up some issues in its internal anatomy that will compromise him, and potentially seeing another King of the Monsters scenario where he's about to blow. This aligns well with the Zosla Halawa segment many people reference from the GVK novelization. The Godzilla who ate a star may be reinterpreted in this
That's
new
a
film
good
as
way
a
to put it.
prophecy and an event that happened in the past, explaining why we see many Kongs, hence Kong's newly acquired army, and a red supercharged Godzilla fighting a new threat. That said, we shouldn't discard the idea that if Godzilla did indeed consume said stars in the past, that being foreign energy sources, it won't be surprising if he does this yet again. This is without mentioning that someone else could have gotten to this meteorite site first and absorbed the energy. That, or some sort of organism managed to crack out of said craft and Godzilla siphoned up any leftover energy. The word supernova comes to scare us again, with the implication that Godzilla would likely die in battle similar to what almost happened last time in King of the Monsters.
Yeah.
This time taking the highly marketable supernova form and sacrificing his life for the conservation of Earth. We understand how this may stir up some
Nova
mixed
Goji.
feelings with many of you. We also do agree that it is too early to completely kill off Godzilla this early in the Monsterverse, especially with other titans like Destroya waiting patiently to make their debut in this cinematic universe.
Yeah,
But there may be a flip side to this. Assuming that Godzilla does indeed die in battle and seemingly sacrifice himself for the conservation of Earth, both an honorable way to go and one which many of our fans agree with, who's to say that Godzilla won't return in the next trilogy? This is a concept that has been seen in the past as well, with the 1984 film incident implying that Godzilla died, but ends up returning in the next film.
Yeah.
A perfect way to set up the next trilogy of the Monsterverse. So, bottom line is, don't be surprised if Godzilla seemingly makes a heroic exit in this next outing. We may just see him come back more powerful than before, especially with progressively more powerful foes.
Was that supposed to be Netsu?
Especially with progressively more powerful foes.
Is that supposed to be Netsu? The one, like, fan-made Shimo?
Hey, all you boring cookie-cutter browser users.
We get this Opera GX ad when this is actually the first video I'm filming on the new browser, Opera GX. Anyway, that was a really cool video. I agreed with a lot of the stuff they said. I do think Mr. Evolved, I can't fucking wait for the Hayatoys. I'm just gonna get this out of the way now. I cannot wait for the Hayatoys. But I think this guy, Mr. Godzilla, Mr. Monsterverse Goji, I do think he will die in a sacrifice, kind of like Heisei did, but I think instead of dying after he kills the villain, I think his sacrifice is going to kill the villain. Like, Destroya died before Godzilla melted down, whereas I think in this situation, bro is going to, I don't know, Mechagodzilla as an example, he's gonna fucking hold him down and kaboom. And then they're both gonna die. That's how I think it's gonna end. That's how... Hell, you know what? Perfect example! What Burning Roseanne did in Lord of the Galaxy. But, yeah. I do think that is how Godzilla's gonna die. But they made some really good points here. Like how foreign energy could affect Godzilla's biology. And what I thought would be a great way to deal with... to make Space Godzilla is have, like, unknown bacteria from space. Like, from that meteor mutating with Godzilla's G cells, and then you can make like a Space Godzilla on Earth. I think that'd be cool, because instead of it being Godzilla from space, it was materials from space that created Godzilla. I'm yapping now. This is not even a part of the video, but that was a cool little video. Like, subscribe to both me and Goji Center, and I say we, I'm not Venom. I will see y'all in the next one. Ciao.